Hello, and thank you for joining us here on the Neutral Zone. I am Phil Milani, joined as always by my trusty sidekick, my partner in crime. Really, the best way to describe this person is my everything. It's at Eric Dalala.
So we're separated once again. A distance is between us.
You know, I went to the higher ups last week and I was like, Eric gets to go to the Super Bowl next week. I really need to be there with him. We got to do the podcast there. And they just said no again.
They're like, who are you?
I was like, I'm Phil Milani, co-host of the Neutral Zone. And they're like, no. Only Eric gets to go to the Super Bowl, except this time we'll send Sydney along with him.
Yeah, well, it's not a party without you here, Phil.
So are you having a good time out there, or what's it like? It looks like you're on Radio Row there.
I mean, as you can tell, there's a lot going on behind me. It's a who's who of, if you cover the NFL, Phil, you're here.
That's true. And I'm just here in our lonely podcast studio.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, it's nice to see some players and catch up with some national media folks, Phil. And I think Von Miller is playing in the Super Bowl this weekend.
Oh, is that why you're there?
No. DeMarcus Ware, Hall of Fame.
Got it. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Of course, as we're recording this, we don't know what's going to happen with DeMarcus Ware.
Right. Just try to look into the future.
What is your crystal ball? What does it tell you?
I think it said try again in 5 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I almost got you there. And
almost.
Then you came through. What's the buzz about the Broncos out there in LA? What's the buzz? You buzzing around?
Yeah, I think the consensus, Phil, is that this is a team that could make some waves this offseason. Not just at the quarterback position, but got a lot of cap space, a lot of draft picks. I think everyone's just kind of eagerly waiting to see what is George Payton going to do. We talked to Justin Simmons. He's just like everybody. He's like a fan, Phil. He wants to know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we'll hear your interview with Justin Simmons. You were able to catch up with him out there.
Let me do another interview.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I told. I said my agent was getting upset. They're like, Eric's getting too much pub with these interviews. Your George Payton interview, that sort of that made some waves, Eric.
Took the world by storm.
Yeah. I mean, everybody was talking about it.
Yeah, many people.
Broncos Country Connected, I think, had some of it on, right? Or were you on there or what?
I was on there Wednesday evening. So it was a nice little crossover event,
Wow. That is nice.
Like if you're on YouTube right now, and you hit the back button, you'll probably go to the Broncos video page and
you think you made
maybe I'm like over here.
You think you made the video part of it?
No, I don't think so.
No. There's no chance. There's no chance. Eric, of course, while you're out there at the Super Bowl, everybody's excited about the big matchup here with the Bengals and the Rams. Two teams that I don't know. What do you think? They have the quarterback position solidified. The Rams obviously made the trade for Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, up and coming young quarterback. It makes you think, okay, for the Broncos to get back in that position to where they're playing for the Super Bowl, does it just come down to the quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, as you'll hear from Justin in a little bit, this team was close to beating the Bengals, Phil. They shut down that offense that's posed a lot of problems for teams, and you kind of wonder just how close are they?
Yeah.
Interesting to consider, because you wouldn't have thought a year ago that the Cincinnati Bengals would be here.
Exactly.
Maybe you would, because you know a lot, so maybe you knew that. But
when the trade for Stafford happened, I was like, okay, the Rams are definitely going to be there. And then, but from the AFC, I just didn't know, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
But let's we'll get into that maybe after we hear from Justin Simmons. Let's talk about how close is this Broncos team to maybe where next year maybe we're not separated. Maybe we're both at the Super Bowl covering the Broncos.
You think they'd send you for that?
I don't know.
Where I think is it in Arizona next year? Is that right?
I could not tell you. I don't know. I only like to look one Super Bowl at a time. That's what I do.
Right. You be where your feet are at the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Did Justin Simmons tell you that?
He's been known to say that a time or two.
That's what everybody who watches the neutral zone.
Somebody just wanted to be on the podcast with me.
Wow.
Flyby.
Shameless photobomb right there. Eric,
we don't endorse anything that we don't endorse anything that happens to come behind you. That's just
no. They're not sponsors of the show, but they could be if they wanted to be, maybe.
Depending on what they are.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll talk about with this Broncos team, what exactly is going on this offseason where they could be in a position where maybe they're competing for a chance to be at the Super Bowl next year. Is that crazy? It kind of feels crazy to talk about, but maybe it's relevant.
I mean, it seems a little bit crazy, but I think, depending on what you do at the quarterback position, we'll get into it more, but I don't think it's out of the question.
It feels crazy to say, but maybe it's not as crazy as we think.
Yeah.
We got a couple of voicemails and emails to get back to, Eric. We haven't done that the last couple of weeks, but we have some that we felt were worthy, or at least Ben Swanson did.
If Ben Swanson thinks they're worthy, then
he's back here with me. We're the only people here. We had to turn on the lights at the facility and everything,
you shoveled the front walk.
Eric, I would be remiss, though, if before moving on to your interview, if I did not mention that this is our 200th episode of the Neutral.
Is it? Wow.
It is.
It's like just yesterday that we were sitting in the old podcast studio, just starting off, and that was the first time we'd ever met, actually. It was the first episode.
Yeah. Of course, they just took a chance on us. They were like, maybe these two guys will work. We don't know.
Right.
And, who knew back then that it would blossom into such a beautiful thing?
Like many of the great sitcoms, Phil, it just kind of took off, and
the pilot episode.
You don't know what you exactly. Wow, 200. That's almost
episodes. A lot.
200. You're like 195 age-wise. You'll get to 200 in a few years. You just look really good for your age.
Thank you very much. I dye my hair, so it makes it look good. But I was gonna say maybe we'll have to celebrate maybe when you get back. Just 200 episodes. We'll have to figure it out.
I'm sorry to miss our anniversary.
I know. I didn't want to say it, but at least not.
You're hurting.
I mean, I don't even think you realized it was our 200th episode. So you forgot.
I'm sorry.
You forgot, Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna stop at the store on the way home and get you something nice.
Yeah. Would that be so much?
After everything you've done for me.
I know. You are my everything, but I guess I'm not yours.
Maybe I'll remember 300.
Maybe 300, yeah. If we make it that far, Eric?
That's true.
I don't know.
No guarantee.
Exactly. So, but yes, thank you to NZ Nation for sticking through with us here. 200 episodes would not be possible without NZ Nation.
No, we owe it all to them.
They would have canceled us a long time ago, but it just does such big numbers.
Exactly. They had no choice, really.
They had to stick with us, and we thank our listeners. So we'll repay the favor when we get to the voicemails and the email later on. So, Eric, do you want to tee up your interview?
Oh, I'd be honored. Yeah, so we're out here at the Super Bowl. A lot of big names, big stars. Justin Simmons here as we're recording, a nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. But so we talked some football too, and interesting to hear his thoughts, not just on Nathaniel Hackett, but the defensive staff, what comes next, and how good is this Broncos team? All right, Justin, we're here at the Super Bowl. To start off, Nathaniel Hackett's energy it's been talked about a lot. How much do you think that helps in the season? Maybe you lose a couple games in a row. How much do you think that helps kind of get the guys going and not fall into those lulls?
Yeah, I think it helps a lot. Obviously there's going to be guys on the team, like myself, that are going to, be able to have the energy, just be able to kind of stay the course, right? It's the NFL season. You're going to lose some games. You're going to win some games, and but I think from a leadership standpoint, with Coach Hackett, like he's going to be able to do that kind of like above and beyond, and I think guys are going to be able to feed off of that. Guys are going to be able to kind of appreciate that, but that's all going to come with just getting to know them, obviously over OTAs and throughout training camp. And then, you get into the season, you know what this team's about, what the coaches are about, and you're able to hit the ground in full force and just, kind of buy in and believe in that.
He's obviously an offensive mind, which the Broncos haven't had in a while. But for you, defensively, Ejiro Evero's kind of reported as the guy that's going to come in as a defensive coordinator. Have you talked to anybody about him, and what would it be like to stay in the same system for you?
Yeah, obviously I've heard the rumors. Obviously no idea, kind of like what's going on there. But as soon as I heard the rumors, I kind of reached out to some teammates that, former teammates and guys that I know that have kind of played, with him or just been around him or in the system or, whatever the case, however you're related. And, that heard nothing but good things. And I think obviously being in the same system would help. Obviously not only, like myself, but everyone, everyone's going to have different terms and things that they put on it. But as long as you have the overall scheme of things being the same, I think that helps. But regardless if it's the same scheme, a new scheme, whatever the case may be, I'm going to be excited, and it's going to be fun, and I'm just excited to win games. Whatever's going to put us in best position to win games, that's what I'm looking forward to.
How crucial is it as this offense gets going to not let the defense take a step back?
Yeah, it's going to be extremely crucial. If anything, offense gets going, we're just going to have to be better. And so, once, we're able to score more points, whatever that looks like, we're going to have to be able to go out there and stop teams giving their best shots. We're going to get the best plays, we're going to get the best drives, and we're going to have to be able to go out there and get those stops. Like I said, there's at least 3 games last year, 4-minute situations where defense couldn't get off the field, talking about our defense. And so those are the types of things, from a defensive standpoint. You want to get into the big game and you want to get into the postseason. You got to be able to make those stops and win those games. And that's, that's going to be like on my big goal sheet, moving forward for the upcoming year.
The secondary is obviously really good last year, but there's some free agents in that group. What do you hope happens kind of on the back end to make sure you guys can be as good as you were last year?
Yeah. It's going to take a lot of camaraderie and just like, every year, you just get a new group of guys, and you always just got to find ways to just buy in and click and just find meaning behind just the meetings and the practice time that you get, right? Because once you're able to do that, you're able to invest and buy in a little bit more to each other, and then that transitions to the field. And obviously selfishly, I wish we could bring every single one back. I wish we could have the same room. I absolutely love those guys and getting to work with them and just being around them. But, for the room that we're going to have, in the upcoming year, just got to be able, obviously, and that's my job, to be able to just buy in and just, be one unit, like one heartbeat. And that's going to be the most important thing. So I'm looking forward to that.
A lot of draft picks, a lot of cap space. I know fans are really excited to see what is George Paton going to do with this thing. Mm-hmm. Are you kind of the same way as it? Like, are you almost like a fan where I want to see what they do too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see like what's happening. I was excited this time last year, and that worked out. We got Pat, and Pat's just been, selfishly, he's just been awesome, and getting to work with him in the back end. But I'm excited. And the best part is everyone asks me like, yeah, what are you guys gonna do? What are you gonna do? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like I'm excited to see just as much as you guys. But I do know that with George running the show, we're gonna be set up for the best possible chance. To really make a run at this thing. And that's really what I'm excited to see, is how all that pans out.
Last one for you, Justin. We're here at the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Bengals are playing this weekend. You guys pretty much shut them down when you played in Denver. It was a really good defensive effort. Does that give you kind of optimism for how things can be moving forward, or does it give you kind of like, oh, we were so close?
Yeah, it's both, honestly. Definitely. optimism because, we knew how good of a team, we were. It was just, like I said, you have those games where, it's a one-score game and you just couldn't find a way to close it out. And, those 5, 6, 7 plays throughout a game that really make a difference. Those are the plays we're going to have to find a way to just win those when it comes down to it. And then situational football, defense being in a 4-minute, got to find a way to win. Whatever it takes, you got to win it. And your best players got to make the best plays in those moments, and those are kind of the things that I'm thinking about. So yeah, obviously, you look back and you think about when you played, Cincinnati, and we played them at home, and how close we were. But that's definitely something to build off of, and can't take steps backwards. So it's a big goal.
Perfect, Justin. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks to Justin Simmons for his time. Phil, we love catching up with Justin. He always makes time for us, but we're always appreciative. We never take him for granted.
Yeah, Justin's our guy. You could just tell there, even on camera, you guys got a rapport. You could just tell.
Rapport.
Yeah, you can just tell.
And Phil, I didn't feel quite right. I don't know if I've ever done a stand-up, like an interview like that on camera.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, you had the cell phone there. That was probably not, that wasn't ideal. Let's just say that. That wasn't ideal. The distance that you guys were standing apart from each other felt uncomfortable. Let's just say it felt uncomfortable. There was some awkwardness there, but you'll get better at that. Especially, if you keep going to all these things and I'm just staying back here.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, Justin asked me if I was going to host the post-game show next year, and I was like, "Well, they want me to, but I haven't decided if I'm going to do that yet." But
makes sense. You're talking about the Broncos post-game show featuring Todd Davis.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it is
but,
nice.
But it was nice to catch up with Justin. He did the rounds here, Phil. He talked to a lot of people, and he made some time for us. Our friend Sidney Jones talked to him on camera. We talked to him for the neutral zone, I guess, also on camera.
That was on camera.
Nice of Justin to find time.
Yeah, and people who aren't familiar with how the Super Bowl works, players get endorsed by different companies to go make the media rounds down there at Radio Row, and then they go around and talk to a lot of different people, and then they usually plug something, but with the neutral zone, we don't do that.
Right. Justin was here with Nationwide.
I could tell based off what he was wearing.
Good year.
I could tell. Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah. And the Masters sent me here, Phil.
Is that because you played so well while you were there, or how did that work?
Exactly. Yeah. Just kind of a budding star, really.
Yeah, that's what I heard. You're kind of like Tiger Woods' kid, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a nice quarter zip though you got going. I got just a regular one here.
Thanks. I was walking through Radio Row here for a lot going on, and someone yelled out to me, "Elite QZ." I was like, "Wow, Elite QZ."
Quarter zip. Quarter zip. Yeah.
And
nice.
I was like, wow, that must be some
Elite.
LA slang that I don't know. QZ.
Do you think they listen in the neutral zone because they know how obsessed we are?
Yeah, I've been like neutral zone stickers. I've just been passing them out here. Yeah.
Good. That's guerrilla marketing right there, just on the ground.
Yeah. That's how you grow your fan base.
Let's get into a couple of things that Justin Simmons said, because this is the first time we've heard from him since Nathaniel Hackett was named the next Broncos head coach here. What was your general takeaway on what he was thinking there? Because since Justin's been here, I guess other than his rookie year, it's been all defensive-minded head coaches.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things that are interesting here, like that are kind of different. One is Nathaniel Hackett's energy that he talked about, and how I was specifically interested, Phil, in when things are not going well, how can this help? Because one of the Broncos' problems the last few years, not just under Vic Fangio, but when Vance Joseph was here too, is the losing streaks would just add up, and you got to be able to avoid those in this league. And you kind of wonder, does that energy, can it prevent something like that from happening? Justin made it seem like having that type of leadership style from the head coach could really pay dividends in that respect. So that was interesting to me. And then, from a pure football standpoint, Phil, obviously we've all seen the rumors, the reports about Ejiro Evero coming over from the Rams. For the Broncos to be able to stay in a similar defensive system, I think is beneficial because obviously we saw how well they played last year, and you don't have to kind of relearn everything. And it fits Justin Simmons really well. So him in particular, he should be ecstatic about being able to stay in that system.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's interesting from a defensive perspective. I think that if you're a defensive player on this team, you really valued Vic Fangio's play calling abilities and his ability to create a game plan to really confuse opposing quarterbacks, to really put you in the best position to succeed as a defense. So now that you're switching gears here and going with an offensive-minded head coach as a defender, now you're thinking, okay, maybe this team's going to be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe they're going to be more trying to score more points. So that changes the way you play defense a little bit here. And I thought it was interesting where Justin really just focuses on the defensive side of the ball and said, there were several times at the end of the game where they couldn't get off the field, couldn't get the ball back to the offense. I think so many people just think, oh, Broncos, the defense was good, the offense was bad, and then that's it. But Justin really is hard on himself, feels like this defense needs to be even better now.
Yeah, he's not wrong there because for as good as the Broncos were scoring-wise defensively, they did allow a lot of long drives. And there were games where they needed a stop and they couldn't get off the field. And we'll see. I think it's going to be hard to replicate Vic Fangio's success as a play caller, but maybe this new, regime comes in and maybe they find a way to help these guys generate more turnovers, or maybe they call plays a little bit differently where, you can force some more 3 and outs instead of holding teams to 3 points. And you do that a couple more times a game, so that changes the entire tone of a football game. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out there.
Yeah, most definitely. I think what Justin said, there's like 5 or 6, 7 plays per game that he feels like if the Broncos can win those, then that would have changed the outcome of a lot of these games here. And I suppose that's probably true for every team in the NFL, where you look back and games are decided with 5, 6, 7 big plays. So the key to win those. But Eric, if you ask me though, I think the Broncos last year, maybe their formula for success was time of possession on offense, playing bend but don't break on defense, and trying to win some of these games in a low scoring fashion. Seems like now, if with Hackett in charge here, maybe they're going to be trying to score more points here. And then how do you think that's going to impact the defensive side of the ball?
Well, obviously if you play with a lead, it's easier than playing from behind or playing tied, or even feel the difference between being up 7 to 10 points in a game versus just kind of holding on to a field goal lead for most of the game. That just changes how an offense can operate. We know that based on what Nathaniel Hackett has said, he wants a defense that's going to change up and disguise its coverages, and then have a front 7 that's kind of moving around to confuse teams. If you put all those things together, you're able to build a lead offensively. To me, that suggests, hey, we're going to have a defense that generates turnovers, that can capitalize on the mistakes of the other team, and that leads to winning a lot of football games.
Yeah. And I just think that maybe they won't be as good in some of these statistical categories just because games are going to have such a different feel, Right. So when opposing teams are trying to be in this offensive shootout, maybe if that's the style that they're playing in some of these games, the statistics aren't going to look as good, but maybe this defense has a chance to be just as good. And maybe they're making some more of these big plays where, hey, they know quarterback has to throw the ball, so there's an opportunity for a sack fumble or something like that. Or maybe for Justin, it means there's more opportunities to intercept the football. I just think that maybe statistically they won't be as good next season, but at the end of the day, if they're winning these games, then who cares?
Right. And a lot of that's going to have to do with what does a secondary look like? Justin talked about how he wishes that everybody could come back. Obviously, unlikely that everyone will be back, of course. And then it has to do with the pass rush. And George Payton said he wants to add a pass rusher. That's a big, important piece for the Broncos to address this offseason. And you just need those key players to be able to make key plays when they're in position to do so. So if you give up 21, 22 points a game instead of 17, that's fine. I think if you're trading some of those points, like you mentioned, Phil, for another interception or a fumble recovery or, a big fourth down stop at the end of the game, like those are okay trade-offs.
Yeah. Talking about, wanting everybody back, who are the free agents? Who could be on their way out or being re-signed here?
Yeah, I mean, well, of the kind of top 6 guys, Kareem Jackson's a free agent. Bryce Callahan is a free agent, and Kyle Fuller is a free agent. I would assume, based on what we saw last year, that Kyle Fuller would probably not be re-signed. Kareem Jackson came back on that 1-year deal after they declined his option. Love Kareem. I still think he can play really well, but based on what you saw from Caden Stearns last year, I think you might want to see him in that starting role. And so then you come to Bryce Callahan and you think, okay, well, he played really well. He did finish the season, though he missed some time, obviously, with an injury. He's the guy out of those 3 that maybe you look at it and say, okay, well, he's a possibility to come back. And if not, the Broncos are going to have to figure out what to do at that nickel spot, and they will need some more cornerback depth. But you still have Pat Surtain, you still have Ronald Darby, you still have Justin Simmons. Secondary is in pretty good shape, even with some of those question marks.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like there could be a couple of changes there to the starting lineup, especially with Kareem Jackson and Bryce Callahan there. It's possible that you're talking about 2 new players. And I think that's why you heard Justin Simmons say that it's important that everybody's on the same page. I think he said 1 heartbeat, Eric.
Wow.
1 heartbeat.
That would be like some sort of scientific marvel, right?
Well, I was going to say that's normally what happens on the neutral zone. We just sync, and we're
2 heartbeats become 1.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Harder to do through Zoom, though.
Much more difficult.
Harder to do. But yeah, I mean, I think that for Justin Simmons, somebody who always really preaches communication, that's something that he's always harping on, that sort of thing. There could be some changes coming on the defensive side of the ball. The other thing he said that is he's confident in the direction that George Payton takes the Broncos, which says a lot. When one of your star players, I would assume that it's safe to say Justin Simmons is one of the Broncos' star players here. When he's got that kind of faith in the general manager, I think that's a good sign. But you mentioned pass rusher there, Eric. That's probably going to be crucial for this Broncos defense if they end up playing games the way that they want to here, where there's more scoring, then pass rushing becomes much more critical here.
Yeah, I mean, no question. The pass rush has to be better. George Payton said that. I think the term he used, Phil, that they're looking for is a mismatch type rusher, which is interesting because that's what you think Bradley Chubb is supposed to be, right? Like that's what you hope he can be. But clearly, even if he kind of gets to that stage, they want somebody else. And they're going to need that because, Phil, you think about the teams in this Super Bowl, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but you fear Aaron Donald. You fear Von Miller the way he's playing right now. You fear Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals. The Broncos need one of those pass rushers that, like, opposing offenses are like, what are we going to do about that guy?
Yeah, well, Eric, before you went out to the Super Bowl this week, you and I had this conversation in the office, and we were like, do the Broncos on the defensive side of the ball have a player that opposing offenses are really just game planning against? Hey, what are we going to do about this guy? They make the opposing offense change their game plan. I would say maybe Surtain is on his way to doing that. But other than that, there's not really that guy.
Yeah, I mean, Surtain, I think, is on his way. I talked to Robert Meese here the other day, and he said normally cornerback takes a a jump in the second year because it's one of those positions.
Who was that, Eric, that you said you talked to?
The Athletics, Robert Mays.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, you just
Interesting
said it
stuff.
a little bit fast. I just couldn't.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Robert Mays.
Got it. From the Athletic.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Formerly of The Ringer.
And what did he tell you?
Well, he just made the point that corner is one of those positions that normally you take a big jump year one from year two to year two, just because it's a position that's very cerebral. You got to figure out coverages. You got to figure out what wide receivers are trying to do. It's not one of those positions where you often come in and make an immediate impact. And so because Surtain had such a good rookie year, he expects a lot from him this season. So I think Surtain will fit in that category this year. And then I would say Justin fits there from the standpoint that I think offenses know if your throw, is not right there, or if you're not quite sure where you're going with the ball, this guy can come out of nowhere and pick the pass off and kind of change things.
Yeah, and I would just say it's harder to have that impact on a game plan from the safety position. There's a few safeties out there where you're really worried from a game plan perspective. But like, for example, this week, I'm sure, and last week, the Bengals have been game planning. What the heck are they going to do about this pass rush from the Rams? That could be a big impact on this game, obviously. And so they have to adjust the way that they try to play. And I'm not sure if I think maybe if Bradley Chubb is healthy and he's firing on all cylinders and he's like able to be himself, he's shown flashes of that. Well, I think the key for him is going to be to stay healthy, obviously, and then be able to do it on a consistent basis, Eric. But regardless of that, they need somebody on the other side of the ball. They need to be able to get it to the quarterback a little bit easier. They need to be able to not have it be like a coverage sack, or like they just need guys who can win one-on-one battles automatically, and I'm just not sure, like as good as Malik Reed developed into, Jonathan Cooper has been playing well, Stephen Weatherly, these guys were fine players, but they're not the kind of players where you're like, we got to get a tight end over there to chip them. The Broncos need somebody more like that.
No, I agree. You gotta find somebody like that. That's one of the key pieces that they've got to add to this defense. And listen, Justin said he's excited to see what happens with all this cap space, with all these draft picks. It's quite possible that the Broncos, go out and make a splash in free agency for an edge rusher, or maybe they use a first round pick on one of these edge rushers, or a day 2 pick. They're going to add somebody somehow.
Yeah. I think that's one of the exciting things about the Broncos is that they're in a position here with the cap space, with all of their draft picks, that they could really make some moves this offseason, Eric. And I think that sort of leads into our second topic of conversation here on the neutral zone. And that is, are the Broncos in a position right now where this offseason they can make a move here or there, most notably at the quarterback position, where they'll be in a position come a year from now where maybe we're talking about the orange and blue playing for it all?
Yeah, obviously it's going to have to be a major acquisition, I think, to get there, because I think when you get to the playoffs, so as we've seen, it's a lot about quarterback play. Who you got to have the team around you, but who can make the big plays when it matters. Joe Burrow went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and made those plays. And so I think there are some moves you can make this offseason where the Broncos are back in the playoffs, like Nathaniel Hackett can take a guy and make it work and get them back in the postseason. But to be in the Super Bowl, I think you're going to need to acquire someone with, or draft somebody that shows quick potential, of that kind of top end skill. That's a top 10 type guy. And if you do that, I don't see why not, because there's talent around him. Obviously, there's holes. You got to figure out right tackle. You got to figure out an inside linebacker. You got to shore up the secondary, the pass rush. But the better the quarterback, Phil, the less important those holes are, and kind of the less visible you are. The Bengals allowed a ton of sacks this year. Their offensive line has not played well, and yet they're in the Super Bowl because Joe Burrow has been really good.
Yeah, I was going to say sort of the genesis of this thinking is trying to compare this Broncos team to the Bengals. And if you remove the quarterbacks from both teams, how do these rosters stack up? I think you could make the argument that the rest of the roster, the Broncos may have an advantage here.
Yeah.
I think if you go down the line, I mean, Jamar Chase may be better than anybody the Broncos have, but then again, he's playing with Joe Burrow. So, like, it's hard to just evaluate single-handedly. But just a wide receiving core on its own, I think you can make the argument that the Broncos might be better there. Tight end, offensive line. I mean, on the defensive side of the ball. I think what you notice, though, is that, like, the Bengals have, like, a guy that you could just trust. Like, Jamar Chase is a guy. You know, Joe Burrow's a guy. You know, Hendrickson is a guy. Like, and maybe they have an advantage there. But just roster to roster, I think you could say the Broncos are better.
I mean, I think that's a good point that you bring up there of having, like, a guy. The Broncos have really good depth, though. And I think, you know, 1 to 53, it's as competitive as any group, but you've got to have those kind of like marquee players, those guys that show up in big time games. And, you know, Noah Fant can be that guy. He's got to be that guy at the tight end position. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton can be those guys at the wide receiver position. They got to show up and do it. Javonte Williams can be, you know, there's no reason Javonte Williams can't be talked about the same way that a Joe Mixon is. You've got to do it. And then defensive line, Draymond Jones, you know, outside linebacker, Bradley Chubb, cornerback, Pat Surtain. Like, they have the guys to do it. You just got to be able to actually go do it.
And maybe to that point, having a quarterback like Joe Burrow, he sort of changes the vibe at the facility, in the locker room. And maybe some of those players that you just mentioned, Eric, maybe they're playing at their full potential because they have the confidence that comes with playing with a guy like Joe Burrow. Or maybe like the pressure on them to deliver and the high standard is set by that quarterback, where the Broncos really just have not had that sort of leadership at that position to really push players to fulfill their potential. Like, say, like if Cortland Sutton goes out there and runs maybe an extra couple of yards on a route that he wasn't supposed to, nobody's like stopping practice and getting on him. Do you know what I mean? Or like maybe somebody makes an error somewhere else. Who's the guy the Broncos that's just like, no, I'm demanding excellence? They don't really have that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that from a inspirational mental standpoint, that's certainly part of it. I then think too, like, you think about the Bengals against the Chiefs, they fall behind, they make some mistakes, like Eli Apple drops a game-winning interception potentially. You know, when the Broncos make those mistakes or they fall behind, they don't have the margin for error or like kind of the wiggle room from the quarterback position that allows them to get back. And so it's not just about like, one particular throw or anything like that, or it's about how much wiggle room does your quarterback give you.
Yep. And
the better they are, the more you get. And I mean, obviously an elite quarterback, I think, is going to take better advantage of Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick. And, it's going to open up the run game. There's all sorts of kind of easy things to see, but I mean, it's just like you mentioned, Phil, they raise all boats kind of and just get those guys to a point where they can be successful.
And then the other thing about the Bengals is that if you go back and look at their season a little bit, there are a couple of games there where they just got blasted and they did not look like they were on their way to a Super Bowl type of season here, and I think about the Chargers went to Cincinnati and really took care of business and handed it to them. And you talked to Justin about that Broncos game against the Bengals. You take away the big play to Boyd for the touchdown for the Bengals and the mistake there with the fumble near the goal line for the Broncos. And who knows what happens in that game. So one of the special things about the NFL is that, like, if you're just hot and you're playing your best football at the right time, you really can make a run at the Super Bowl and beat a team that maybe is a little bit more talented than you just because you're playing your best football at that time. So if you ask me, like, those things could happen for the Broncos where all of a sudden you're talking about a year from now, you're in a completely different position. I mean, that's why every year you see teams go from worst to first in their division. You see these kind of changes. And Eric, if you ask me, there's no reason why that couldn't be the Broncos.
No, I mean, obviously it's made more difficult from the fact that the Broncos are in a better division than the Bengals are in my opinion. I don't know that that's.
I don't know. I mean, that the AFC North is like a really hard physical type of division where, you know, if you ask me to win that division gets you really prepared for the playoffs. If you ask me, I mean, you're talking about beating the Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns. Those are some good teams there.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns fell apart a little bit toward the end of the year. The Ravens fell apart without Lamar. Pittsburgh made a late surge, but like Big Ben was not what we've kind of been used to him being. So
two of the better divisions, let's just say that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll see kind of how much the Bengals are able to replicate this, because you're right, it is about getting hot, but it also helps to get hot to have that good quarterback. You know, like there's like Jimmy Garoppolo got the Niners to the NFC Championship, and that was great. But you know, you feel better about the Bengals' chances, I think, of being able to go out and win the thing. Obviously, the Niners are not in it, but like the reason I think the Bengals have that edge is because of the quarterback position. The rest of the Niners roster is probably better than the Bengals roster. The Niners just have that guy.
Yeah, and if you're talking about the Bengals, you know, and their future here, just because Burrow is on this rookie contract, they're going to have a little bit of a window here where they're going to have to cash in. So paying attention to what they do this offseason is going to be really interesting, just to see if they feel like they're trying to take advantage of this rookie window here with Burrow. But, you know, talking about the Broncos, you know, with their cap space and the draft picks, they really have a lot of opportunities to make some big changes. Obviously, Nathaniel Hackett is coming in and putting his own spin on the culture here in the building. And obviously, we saw his energy. You were at that Nuggets game with those guys, right?
I took the photographs.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought maybe they just cropped you out of those.
Yeah, but I ran up to grab another bevy, I think.
Oh, got it. Yeah. How many did you do?
You don't want to know.
Yeah. But obviously, picks are going to be different around here for the Broncos. And, you know, I just think that it seems crazy to talk about. Like, it seems like they're just really far away. But a move here or there, and you're talking about a wholesale change where maybe things are really different for the Broncos. Even if you just think about this Bengals team, like the Cincinnati Bengals are playing for the Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? Well, that's what happens when you have a guy like Burrow.
Well, it's all about how often can you be in the mix, you know? Like, who knows if they win this weekend? It would be an upset if they win. But, you know, if they're in the playoffs every year for the next 6, 7, 8, 9 years, you're going to give yourself a chance to be back in this situation. And you just never know when it's going to happen. I mean, most teams – even when you find the guy, you're going to get 1 or 2 chances at it over the 1 or 2 chances at us being in the Super Bowl over the course of a decade, and you hope you win one. You know, Peyton and Indy won one, went twice. Aaron Rodgers has been to 1 in Green Bay during his career. Russell Wilson's been to 2, won 1. I mean, talk about some of these great quarterbacks, but when you're in the mix, you get there eventually, or you know, maybe it's early in your career. Sure, Burrow could win and never get back, but it's about getting in the mix enough times. And obviously, Phil, the better your quarterback is, the more of a chance you have to be in the mix
and sustain success. I mean, it's nice when you're talking about Peyton and Indy. You knew every year they were going to automatically win 11, 12 games right off the bat. I mean, when you have that kind of success, it just changes the vibe around the building. I mean, the whole state of Indiana likes football now because of one guy. You know, that's not a stretch to say that, you know, I mean, that Indiana is a basketball and auto racing state. And because of one guy, now they care a lot about football. So that's the kind of impact you can have, when you're that good. Eric, let me ask you one question here. Are you ready?
Yeah, hit me.
I saw this on ESPN today, so I should give credit there, but it was an interesting question. If Burrow wins this thing,
Yes.
okay, he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, does he supplant Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback in the NFL?
No.
You don't think so?
No. I think
both Super
Mahomes
Bowl winning quarterbacks at that point.
Mahomes has won an MVP. Mahomes has done it at an elite level for the last 4 seasons. I mean,
Well, Burrow hasn't had that opportunity to do it yet.
sure. Yeah, which means he could at some point supplant him, but just based on one, it's great to win a Super Bowl. In the grand scheme of things, it's a 4-game stretch where you can get hot for a month and kind of change the trajectory of your career. Now, I think he would move past like Josh Allen and really maybe anybody else except for Rodgers. Like he would push himself up that high. You might say, hey, he's the 3rd best quarterback in football. But Mahomes just does things, Phil, where you're like Joe, which I know you appreciate. He's like on rhythm. He stands in the pocket. He makes these throws. He can use his legs, but he's not scrambling around and going crazy. Mahomes just makes plays sometimes where you're like, how is it physically possible that he did that?
Yeah, but he also has Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce,
Yep.
Andy Reid is calling his plays. There's a little bit of an advantage there. So it's an interesting. I think that in our minds, like Mahomes is just like so far and away, like that guy. But I think it might be a little bit closer than maybe people realize, because Mahomes only has the one Super Bowl. Like to your point there, where you have a certain amount of opportunities here, and if you don't cash in during that window, it might blow past you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And like you think about Burrow, and you're like, gosh, it's just his 2nd year. He's going to be back in this position, several times. You don't know that.
Yeah,
Young
Marino
might have something else to say about that.
Yeah, I think I saw him earlier.
Oh, do you want to get him on the show? Is he around?
Dan, he's busy.
That would be some tremendous perspective from Dan Marino.
That would be good.
Would that bump a Justin Simmons interview or probably?
No, we could probably run the Marino next week.
Yeah, run the Marino next week. Yeah. So you think, Eric, it's not that crazy to talk about? You think the Broncos could be in that spot, or no?
I mean, it's not
too much hypothetical.
Of course, it's hypothetical. I think that I think one way or another, they're going to either upgrade at the quarterback position to a point where they can get to the playoffs, and in that case, maybe you go on a run. Once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen, and so it's not that crazy. Like they're not going to be Super Bowl favorites in that standpoint, but who knows? Maybe you get lucky and win a couple of games, and the Niners were essentially they had a 10-point lead, right, going into the 4th quarter. The Niners I view as, depending on what, like if the Broncos make like a decent upgrade at the quarterback position, I view them as kind of like a Niners type team next year. And if the Broncos make an elite jump at quarterback and get one of these big guys somehow, then of course, then there's no question they can be in this game.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in most sports, like the thinking is like get competitive, make the playoffs, and then maybe after a year or two of that, then you could get to the Super Bowl. But like the NFL doesn't really work that way. I mean, when you're good and if you're hot, you just get there, and it doesn't really matter. So,
right.
I think that like these teams just make drastic changes where if you're talking about an elite change at the quarterback position, all bets are off, Eric.
Yep. No, I agree with you.
You could book your flight to Arizona right now, and maybe or maybe not.
If that's where it is.
Yeah, if that's where it is, who knows? Who knows, Eric? Okay, anything else you want to talk about on that, or should we get to some voicemails and an email here?
Let's do the voicemails. Let's do it.
You want to do it? Okay. Our first voicemail here is from Paul in Wisconsin, Eric. Paul in Wisconsin.
Hello, Phil and Eric. This is Paul calling from Waukesha, Wisconsin. I really appreciated that interview with Peyton because I thought it was especially enlightening when he said, pointing to the big guys coming out in the draft. To me, that says they're looking at Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, and they want protection. And that's something probably that Aaron Rodgers, he's looking at, I got a great left tackle. I got a really good left side. I want protection. And I'm thinking that the Broncos might be going early on offensive line, which I think is really exciting. So I appreciate the interview there, and I look forward to more. Thanks.
Paul, thank you very much for that voicemail from Waukesha, Wisconsin. You know who's from out there, Eric?
Who's that?
Quinn Miners.
Ooh,
Waukesha.
it'd be fun to go visit him.
It would be fun. Yeah. What'd you think about
mine?
huh?
Just kind of a dream of mine.
To go up to Wisconsin?
Yeah, I've been.
You're in
Never
Los
been to a
Angeles?
football game. Ever been to a football game in Madison? Yeah, they know how to do it.
I have Camp Randall. Yeah, the jump around.
Yeah.
They do know how to do it. Eric, but what do you think about what he said? First of all, he appreciated your interview, so you got some fans now.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
What do you think? Did you read into George talking about it being a big guy draft? Did that signal to you that maybe he's identified that the O-line needs to get better, especially if they go out and get one of these big time quarterbacks?
I mean, I think regardless of if they get a quarterback, they're going to need to find an answer at right tackle. It's just been a revolving door the last few years, like 2015, 2016. I mean, they've gone through starters like crazy, Phil. And so I do think finding a guy that can just provide some stability there and, grow alongside or across from Garrett Bowles, like that's important. And I think the good news for the Broncos is that some of those guys who have high upside will be there on day 2, I think, And so for the Broncos, if you make a big time trade and you don't have your first round pick and you don't have, the second from the Rams, maybe you're still able to get a guy that can help and come in there. But the plan of attack kind of changes. If you get a big time quarterback and you trade a bunch of draft picks, you might have to just go big in free agency to fill some of these needs. So whether it's through free agency or the draft, I think with a tackle, the ideal route is the draft because you don't have to. When tackles get to the open market, they're just so expensive, and
Yeah.
you're really not ever getting like the most elite guy. It's always kind of like a guy with a little bit of a question mark. So if they can find one in the draft, that would be ideal. But I think they're going to be looking regardless of what happens at QB.
Yeah. Do you think that they would address that tackle position if they did, say, in a certain situation, trade away their first round pick? Maybe their first pick comes day 2. Do you think that you reach for a tackle there? Or do you think that, hey, tackle, you're talking about like the top half of the first round?
No, I mean, I think some of the guys who are at the Senior Bowl are kind of that day 2 type guys with potential. Kid from Northern Iowa, kid from Minnesota. There's some, I think maybe Oklahoma. Like there's some options there that we'll get into, I'm sure, Phil, as we get to the combine and more draft evaluation prep. But no, I think day 2 is fine. In my ideal world, Phil, is I think you attack that edge rusher position in free agency, and then you go after tackle and linebacker in the draft.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. But edge rusher is going to be expensive too if you go out and get a top free agent.
There's
You got
Chandler Jones. It'd be interesting.
Chandler Jones. Guys like that in the free agent market, though, Eric. If you get a big time quarterback, that also changes that too. You know what I mean? Like, then all of a sudden people want to come play with that guy. Like,
right? Yeah, they want to play. Yeah,
I'm sure free agents are lining up to be like, hey, we want to play in Cincy. As crazy as that sounds, people want to play with Burrow. You even heard Odell
Maybe-
Beckham Jr. this week talk about how cool Burrow was. You know?
That's how you know.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is how
let
you.
let me give you a couple of names here, just so I'm not
Just spitballing.
totally.
Chandler Jones
Yeah,
is the big guy.
yeah. You've got.
Von Miller, of course.
Oh no, sorry. I was talking more about the tackles rather than the.
Tackles in the draft
rushers.
is what you're trying to talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Trevor Penning is a guy from Northern Iowa. He's kind of one of the main guys that people viewed at the Senior Bowl as a top prospect. So he could be like a day 2 option, maybe.
There's always like somebody from like a really small school who just happens to be really good at blocking people.
Yeah,
Those guys
There's a
have
lot.
to. Those guys have to ball out at the Senior Bowl, though. You know,
They do.
that's sort of what they have to do. Just like Quinn Miners did last year. Who's the Quinn Miners of this year, Eric?
Oh, I don't know yet. You got to dive in.
Gotta dive in. Okay, let's get to our next voicemail. Our good friend, Jeff Flanagan.
My name is Jeff Flanagan, and I am here this evening to offer each of you a 33% ownership stake in the Denver Broncos for only $2 billion each. That's right. I'm giving you both the opportunity to have what everyone always wants, to be a third of their own boss. Phil, next time Eric smug look and then gets on his phone during the neutral zone, you can tell him, hey, I'm going to call Jeff or we're going to fire you. How you like that? Eric, next time Phil wants to bench Drew Lock, for no reason, our franchise quarterback, tell him you're going to give me a call out the door. Or if for any reason you guys, get tired of me, you guys can hand over your ownership stakes and just be done with the whole thing. That's the kind of power we can have by forming an ownership group. So just think about it.
Jeff, thank you very much for that voicemail there. Of course, the Broncos are for sale. That was announced this week, or that was last week, I guess.
Last week.
Jeez.
Time's flown, Phil.
I just was thinking about the math, though, there with what Jeff was saying, was that if you and I each want to contribute $2 billion, then the three of us could own the Broncos. What does that mean that Jeff is contributing? I
think that means that Jeff is smart enough to be in control because he knows numbers. He knows what he's doing here.
And then he said that if you and me wanted to kick him out of the ownership group, that wouldn't be possible. So
we wouldn't do that.
No,
but
we would never do that.
But we did tell Tom Magnetti if we put a bid together that we would consider him as a shareholder.
That is true. Maybe he could be like the president or something.
Right. It's possible.
Yeah. Do you think that
it'll be interesting?
If you had, like, say, in some kind of crazy world, you were a billionaire, do you think it'd be fun to own an NFL team?
Oh, it'd be great. Of course.
Like, is that something you would want to put your money toward?
Yeah. I mean, one, it's a great investment. Two, you get to fly around and watch football. You're probably on like a private plane. You got your own entrance. You see the owners' entrances at some of these stadiums we're at, Phil. Like, you just drive your car like into the locker room, basically.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It is pretty awesome.
You watch a game from like a nice suite. I mean, it'd be fun. Yeah, of course that would be great.
It's sort of like those guys live that kind of life anyway. But if you are a sports fan and you have that kind of money, like that is sort of the perfect situation because then it comes with a little bit of a clout. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
Jerry Jones has that helicopter pad, at the Star. I mean, you start doing things like that where everybody's like noticing, and you kind of have to be sort of a fan like that, where you're like, I get to be like in the locker room, or like you kind of have to have some sort of like that childhood, kind of
Right.
You don't just do it to just like put your money towards it.
Right. Of course.
That is kind of interesting. Yeah. It's a fun way to spend your money if you have that kind of money, I guess, huh?
Oh yeah.
Eric, and then the last thing I wanted to get to here was an email from our good friend Andy Maines.
Oh, Andy, what's going on?
Yes. He says, "What's up, fellas? Andrew from Connecticut again." He's chiming in about the quarterback situation. He says, "I don't think we necessarily need an Aaron Rodgers to be a playoff team. We just need a top 5 to 6 quarterback, no matter what it takes. We have a really good team all around. Weakest link is at the quarterback position." And he says this is in particular note because you won't be able to hold this roster together for too many years. So he kind of goes on to say, like, gosh, wouldn't it be just great if Drew Lock could sort of figure it out and go out there and be the guy? But he doesn't really see that happening right now. So he just says, maybe you don't necessarily need to go out and get that top guy. Obviously, there's a lot of reports about Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson making a big trade like that. But he says maybe you could get somebody else and still be in a really good spot. What do you think?
Yeah, a lot there. Thanks for the email, Andy. I think, well, let's start with Drew. I think the problem with going that route is that, like he mentioned, the roster is ready to win. You can't hold it together for that long. So I think you need somebody that can step in and make an impact, unless you're going to go the rookie route and kind of commit to developing that guy, giving him some time to work things out. But you don't want to just waste a year of like, maybe this will work, maybe it won't. It's time to go. I'll say the other thing with that in terms of
go time.
Exactly. The thing with developing the roster and keeping it in place after these contracts is that you really become dependent upon your ability to draft. And we know that George Payton did a great job his first draft. We know how much of an emphasis he placed on that, how much he wants to build through the draft. And so I think, it's a good problem to have, Phil. If your players are good enough that they need second contracts and you can't afford some of them, it's a good problem to have, which might seem counterintuitive. But I think that George has shown that he's the type of guy that can keep drafting, keep leading you to have a successful roster, because that's the key for like a team like the Chiefs that has extended all these players. You got to put good young draft picks around them to make things work. And then the last thing in terms of, sorry, do you want to chime in?
I was going to say, well, what do you think about the notion that you won't be able to keep this roster together for very long? It does seem like the Broncos have been able to tie up some of these guys, like a Cortland Sutton. They didn't even let him get to the free agent market. Tim Patrick, they're able to lock those two guys down. Is there anybody who's coming up where you're just nervous about them leaving, that it would just be a huge blow to the roster?
No, I mean, not right now, but you're going to get to the point where, you're going to make a decision on Bradley Chubb. Like if he has a nice bounce back year, you got to make a decision on him. You're going to get to the point where Jerry Jeudy at some point, you're going to have to address his deal. I know we're still a ways away from that, but the Broncos haven't had to deal with that issue because they've kind of missed on some of these picks in the past. Now that they're seemingly starting to hit, you're going to have those decisions at some point. I don't think it's an issue for this year, for next year. That's a 3 or 4 year down the line type of problem. But I'm just saying that you have George Payton because of his value and his ability to draft,
to reload.
So I think he'll be able to do that.
Okay.
In terms of the quarterback conversation, I don't disagree that like a top 8 guy would get it done. It's just that it seems like, Phil, this year, it's either, somehow get one of those top 2 or 3 guys, or, maybe you're looking more at like 15. It's not like a bunch of these guys are available. And so, you either pay the price to get one of those guys if they're even available, or I don't want to say settle, but you go with someone who's a little bit lower. It's not like we're going to the old market and we're like, hey, I want a quarterback,
Yes,
you kind of are going to just take what you can get.
It is interesting about like the timing and the luck that is involved in some of these things, and just sort of where your organization is. Like for example, the Bengals fell into Joe Burrow. or like Jacksonville fell into Trevor Lawrence, and those things just sort of just fell into their lap. On the other side of that situation, though, like the Rams, they were like, we need to get better at the quarterback position, and they went out and made a trade for Matthew Stafford. So like those are two teams that went about it in different ways. For the Broncos this year, it doesn't seem like there is that quarterback that's worth like moving from 9 all the way up to like a top 3 pick, you know, like the 49ers did last year. It doesn't seem like there's that guy in this year's draft. Who knows? But it doesn't seem like there's that guy. And then you talk about either free agency or trade market. Well, the trade market, it is those top guys. I think that's where you probably are looking first. And then you maybe, if that's not an option, then you got to work your way back from that. But it sort of seems like that's what you're looking at here.
Well, you're not going to that trade market and saying, you know, hey, we'd really like this guy like right in the middle because he's going to cost a little bit less capital. Like you don't get to choose that. Like it's just who could be available. You know, if Kyler Murray becomes available for some reason, if his Instagram is a big deal, then maybe that's something that's kind of like a more reasonable deal. But I think it was John Elway, Phil, who said quarterbacks don't grow on trees. And then he was like, I've been shaking the tree to see if one will fall out. But this is not a situation where you get to just kind of like choose exactly who you want. It doesn't work like that. And so the Broncos question will be, 3 options. Do you try to land a huge name and spend a lot of capital? Do you go kind of like the medium route, or do you go the draft route and you weigh the pros and cons of each and the cost, and then you go from there?
Eric, if they don't do any of those things, that is going to be that would be a tough sell to Broncos country, huh?
I mean, it would be. I think you'd have to really have a plan with Nathaniel Hackett and say, hey, here's how he's going to get the best out of, Drew Lock if it's him. Teddy Bridgewater if they bring Teddy back, and then say, and you wouldn't have to have this conversation until after the draft, obviously, but the conversation might be, hey, we didn't believe that any of these guys were we weren't ready to commit to any of these guys, and try again next year. But that would be a tough sell for a team. Easier for the Buccaneers, right, Phil, to do something like that and say, hey, we're not going to bring in a big name. We're going to ride with Kyle Trask for 1 year. Easier for them to do that after winning the Super Bowl than it is for the Broncos.
Yeah. That's what I mean, like sort of by luck, like if the Broncos maybe were really looking for a quarterback, say like next year, and then there was maybe more of those franchise guys as an option, like right off the bat, then maybe you're in a position where there's not just limited routes. And then you could be like, okay, we've got some options here. But it just so happens to be that the Broncos are looking for a quarterback, it seems like, during a year where there's not that obvious couple of guys at the very top of the draft. Who knows? One of these guys may turn into that, or maybe, the Broncos really fall in love with one of these guys. But just from a national perspective of the drafts at this point, doesn't appear like there's that guy. So, well, thank you, everybody, for sending in your emails. Andy, thank you very much for your email there. And also Paul and Jeff Flanagan for leaving some voicemails. Eric, if people want to get involved in the show, how do they do that?
Yeah, a few ways. So you can leave an email at neutralzoneshow@gmail.com. You can leave a voicemail at 707-NEUTRAL. You can follow us on Twitter at Eric Dwella with an A and Phil Milani with a PH.
How would you like describe those types of spellings?
Kind of non-traditional, I would say.
Yeah. And then if somebody's watching on YouTube, is there something they can do if they want? They're like, we like this, we want to watch this every week. What do you think?
You bet. You could smash that subscribe button. I mean, that could be a really nice option.
What would be nice is if people congratulated us on our 200th episode.
Yeah. Be happy for us.
Send in some selfie videos and I'll retweet them. The Broncos Podcast Network can retweet them. It's our 200th episode. I mean, it feels like celebrating.
It's a big deal.
Please send in some celebration videos. How do you watch the Neutral Zone? How do you listen? I want to see the celebration videos.
You got to tell us.
Eric, it's our favorite time of the show. Shout outs, and then we'll wrap this thing up. You got any shout?
Yeah, we'll do some shout outs here. Justin Simmons, Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the Broncos. As we're recording this, we've not yet found out who is the winner, but either way, Justin's third time in a row being nominated. Very impressive.
Did you say 7th time in a row? Is that what you said? 7th?
Third time in a row.
Third time. Sorry.
Could get to 7th eventually, but
Could get this.
we'll just have to see. And shout out to Andrew Beck, who was the National Salute to Service Award winner.
He already won. He already won that. He got that locked up.
They announced that already.
Yeah. What do you think about Mr. Beck's flow? I mean,
it's tremendous.
It is.
Great hair.
Do you think you could pull off
for
something
everybody?
like that?
But no, I don't think so. Not at all. But Beck makes it work.
Because this show, we do care about hair a lot, and just like I think that, like I just didn't see anybody commenting on the flow, and it's just sort of like, hello, look at that thing.
It's important.
It is important. It's tremendous. Yeah, those are some good shout outs. I shouldn't mention the shout out Liz Gerald's. She goes above and beyond to make those things happen. You don't
She's
just
out here in
wake
LA,
up and make it happen.
She's in LA.
She is?
Yeah, NFL honors.
I thought you were going to the camera was going to zoom out and be like, Collinsworth, slide in, boom.
Yeah, no.
I was waiting.
I should have got that.
Gosh, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
That could have been a nice surprise. You would have been like 200th episode, boom, Liz Gerald's, the famous Liz Gerald's right
here.
We
got this guy, though. We got this guy.
I don't know who that is. I saw somebody behind you that said a certain type of alcohol goes beast mode.
That's not family friendly.
I thought you were going to walk around with like a Breckenridge sweatshirt. It said Breckenridge Brewery goes beast mode.
Farmhouse. Yeah. I should.
The farmhouse is a farm home, something like that.
Exactly.
We got to get some slogans. Yeah.
Yes, we do.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. I do believe that next week we'll be back in person, I think.
I think so, Phil. We're ready to do it.
I've missed you.
Ready to be back.
Oh, my gosh. Is everything okay there?
The party is just getting started.
Oh, they're setting up for the party, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Got it. All right. Well, Eric, nice work out there getting yet another exclusive interview with a major member of the Broncos community here, and that's Justin Simmons this time. So that was. How did you find him there?
I learned from the best. I'm always around. So.
You stalk him.
You buzz enough. You buzz in the right place.
Yeah. What do you think is happening here, like with your desk? Because normally you sleep at your desk, right? So
yeah, I put up the do not disturb sign that I have there, and I just hope people are being respectful.
You think all your stuff is safe or no?
Yeah, I hope so.
I could check your mail if you want.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
So, all right. Well, we'll be back next week, and maybe we could celebrate properly. It'll be episode number 201, the start of a new, fresh beginning.
Century.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, looking forward to another exciting 100 episodes. So, until then, for Eric Dalal, I'm Phil Milani. You've been listening to The Neutral Zone.